Hello, welcome everyone. This is Prefect Live, and I'm. Hello, welcome everyone. This is Prefect Live, and I'm. Hello, welcome everyone. Sorry if you're getting a little reverberation there. If you weren't, don't worry about it. I'm Jeff Hale. I'm a developer advocate with Prefect, and if you have any questions for us at all, please ask those in the chat. Welcome to everyone who's joining us from either Twitch or YouTube Live. Both those are places where we're streaming, so check out either of those. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the action in the future, don't forget to subscribe to our channel in YouTube or in Twitch. Follow us there. And presumably a lot of you came to us from our Slack channel. We have a very active Slack community with over 20,000 members. But if you're not there, we'll put a link in the chat and you can join us in Slack. So that's a great place to get questions answered and find out what's happening with Prefect. So today I have Alex Streed with me. Where are you coming from today, Alex?
Schaumburg, Illinois, Jeff.
Oh, where's Schaumburg? Is that near Chicago?
Yeah, it's a western suburb of Chicago.
Gotcha. Beautiful day in Chicago area. Chicago.
Yeah, it's been a very pleasant late August. The humidity has stayed low. It hasn't been too hot, so it's been very pleasant so far.
Awesome. Cool. So, what do you do at Prefect, Alex?
I am the integrations team lead. So I lead our integrations team here at Prefect, helping to maintain the set of collections that we offer to all of our Prefect users. And I also recently have been spending a lot of time working on blocks, the core feature, and also building out the set of blocks that we have to offer to users.
Cool. So what are you going to be talking to us about today?
So today I was thinking of walking through Prefect DBT, which is one of our Prefect collections, specifically for integrating with DBT. And I wanted to walk through that just to show kind of some of the cool things that are happening under the hood in terms of patterns. I think it would be useful kind of to see how we approach writing integrations. It might provide some useful insight into how to write your own tasks and flows and how to use blocks. And kind of give a taste for what the kind of things that we can do with blocks as well, and where those are going in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, I know blocks is a topic that comes up a lot with Prefect too, and it seems like there's a lot of functionality there, a lot of possibilities for other things in the future too. So excited to hear about that. Cool. So you want to tell us just a little bit about what DBT is here, this particular block that you're going to be talking about?
For sure. So DBT is a tool specifically for data analysts to be able to take SQL that you write and apply software engineering best practices to it and modularize it so that you can make SQL scripts that you write a lot more scalable and easier to run against different environments, against different warehouses. And we see DBT used with Prefect very frequently. I'd say they go together like peanut butter and jelly. And the thing that's useful about DBT and Prefect together is allows data engineers and data analysts to work together really well. So you can have a pipeline that's written by a data engineer, runs a DBT project that's written by a data analyst, and you can really build some robust ETL pipelines or ELT pipelines. And DBT is going to really hold down the transform step of those pipelines as you're moving data around.
Nice. So this integration or collection, if you will, kind of helps the two play together even nicer. Is that the big thing it does?
Yeah, with all the integrations that we have at Prefect, because Prefect is so flexible, you can bring just ordinary Python code to it and execute it. You can do pretty much anything yourself, but there's going to be a high level of complexity and a high level of responsibility when you do that. When we create integrations, normally we're taking a couple of steps for you. To make it easier to get started with your tools, so you can focus on your business use case instead of all the finer points of calling the DBT Cloud API or managing DBT CLI profiles and stuff like that.
Awesome, makes a lot of sense. Cool. All right, you want to take it away here and show us what you got?
Sure. So Prefect DBT is one of our Prefect collections. if you're not familiar with Prefect collections, they are groupings of Prefect integrations that relate to a specific external service. And they can contain tasks, they can contain flows, blocks, task runners, really a toolkit for interacting with whatever tool you're using within your data stack. They can be installed individually as separate Python packages. So you really just get to pick and choose what's in your data stack and what you want to use. For Prefect DBT, it works with DBT CLI and DBT Cloud. I'm going to start with DBT Cloud for like my demo. So what we have here is we have two things that we're importing from Prefect DBT. We've got our DBT Cloud credentials, and then this flow named trigger DBT Cloud job run and wait for completion. And so this is the easiest way to get started with DBT Cloud and Prefect. This assumes that you have configured a job already in DBT Cloud, and you want to trigger it as part of your pipeline. So if you have tools that you're using other than DBT and you want to coordinate them in Harmony, like say you're using Airbyte to move data around, and then you want to move that into Snowflake and then transform that within Snowflake and then trigger some work in your BI tool, you can do all that with Prefect, and DBT is one of the ways that you're going to get that done. So what we have here is our DBT Cloud credentials block. And so blocks are used for storing configuration and then also providing functionality related to that configuration. So the particular configuration that I'm storing in this DBT Cloud credentials block is my API key for DBT Cloud and also my account ID. So that's stored in there. I don't have to expose that now in my flow. I don't have to fiddle around with environment variables or reach for another secret management service. I can do that all from Prefect. So I've created this ahead of time. And blocks are super easy to use. You import a class, you call .load with the name of the block that you created, and it shows up in your flow code. And so I'm loading that here on line 11, and then I'm going to pass that in to my trigger DBT Cloud run job and wait for completion. And it's going to use that information to call the DBT API in order to trigger that job, start the run, and then it's going to query the status of that run every 10 seconds, wait for it to complete, and then give me the result of that. And so if I run my keyboard disconnected.
We were joking this could be an ASMR category under Twitch, and the mechanical keyboard is how we can get there. So it's great.
Absolutely. So I'm running my demo script right here. So I'll expand these logs a little bit. So you can see we're getting logs as this is happening. Within these logs, you can see we have the URL of the job that we triggered. So if I click on that, it's going to take me to DBT Cloud, and I can see some information about this here, which is great. So if you're debugging something that goes wrong in DBT, quite often you're going to want to look to it here. And so it's really convenient to be able to go from your Prefect job and go straight into the exact page that you need in DBT to see that working. And so we've triggered it, and you'll see these logs that are coming through where it's printing the status of the job and then telling you what it's going to do. So we're looking at the cloud job run with this ID. It's running. Means it's not finished yet, so we're going to check in again in another 10 seconds. And so this will take roughly 2 minutes to finish. You can also see what's happening in the Prefect UI. So you can see that I have 3 different flow runs that have been created when I kick that off. One of those flow runs is this flow run right here. So this was the flow run that's in a real world scenario. This would be like kind of your main flow run that you're kicking off, and it could have flow runs that execute DBT syncs, It could have flow runs that perform an airbyte connection sync. Right now, we're just triggering a DBT job. The second flow run that you see, it would be this flow run, this flow right here, which is the top level flow run of the flow that I imported from Prefect DBT. And then the third one is our waiting flow. And so I'll go through the code and kind of explain why we're actually triggering two different flow runs from this. And so now you can see that it completed successfully. I see that in the Prefect UI. I see that in the DBT Cloud UI. I'm happy. So we can come and look at this. And I, in particular, wanted to look at the radar chart for this, because you can get insight into what that flow just did from the radar chart without having to actually look at the code. So you can see here, this is our flow that we kicked off. The first thing that it does is as a task to trigger the DBT Cloud run. And so one of the pieces of advice that I give to people that are writing Prefect flows is generally, if you have an API call, that should be a task. It gives you observability into that. It gives you the ability to have automatic retries, which is great, because even if you have an API that's like 99% uptime, it's still going to be down for like a couple of days a year or something like that. It's crazy how unreliable APIs can be. And so having retries really helps with the robustness of your pipeline. Then we're going to get the ID of the Cloud Run that we just triggered, and we're going to wait for it to complete. And so this is another flow run that we created. And this is created mainly for grouping purposes, because within this flow run, there's actually many tasks that get triggered. We're not really sure how many tasks are going to get triggered in this flow run, because we're checking every 10 seconds to see, has this job completed? And so you can see here, it normally checks about 13 to 14 times. And so you can see kind of the sequence of checks that it performed. And this is, not necessarily useful information when you're debugging why your DBT Cloud Run job run failed. It's just going to clutter up your radar UI. And so using subflows to group like task runs together, very useful. One of my favorite features of Prefect 2.0. Let's see. And then if we come back here, you can see that once that's done, we are going to get all the artifacts from the run. And so you can see what just happened. Even though this wasn't your flow code, you have insight into what just happened. And it'll also give you insight into why failures occur. And so I believe, if I go and I trigger this again, and I cancel the DBT run in progress, that's going to cause this flow to fail. Let's see, I need my new URL to my new run. I'll open that. So let's see, it is, what's the status of it right now? It's starting. So I'm going to wait till it starts to cancel it. Okay, so now it's running. I'm going to cancel this run. And so if I go back to my flow runs, once it picks up that it was canceled, you'll see that in my logs right there, it was canceled. I get an error that says this was canceled, so we failed this flow run. And I should see that this flow run has failed. And I can click in here, I can go into my radar chart, and I can see that there was a failure for this flow. I can go into the logs in the UI. If this were running on an agent and I didn't actually have access to the console logs, I could go into the logs and see, oh, yep, that job was canceled, which is great. And so this is a very managed kind of feel to this. Like, we've taken care of a lot of the best practices for using DBT Cloud jobs from Prefect, but it may not fit all cases. And so what do you do if the flow that we've created in this collection doesn't fit your use case? One of the nice things is that as I was showing, all these are broken up into tasks. And all of these tasks are usable individually as well. So in Prefect 1.0, in the integrations that we had, where we had them in the task library, everything had to be a task. And so there was this complication that we had where if you wanted to provide meaningful functionality, generally that involves multiple API calls. Just triggering a dbt cloud job and then not checking in on it isn't particularly useful in a data flow. But that would mean that we would have to create multiple tasks in the task library, and then people would have to stitch them together themselves because we didn't have this first-class subflows concept in 1.0. But now we're able to break apart everything that's happening in a flow, make each part individually available while still offering this managed, this pre-made experience for flows. So I can show you in the dbt cloud or the dbt prefect dbt collection what kind of tasks we have available. So we'll look at the flow itself. So this is the code for the flow right here. You can see some of the options that are available for it. And so you'll see that we've got this task right here, this trigger dbt cloud run task. So if you wanted to use that by itself, you could. If you just wanted to trigger something and you don't particularly care about the result, you just need to make sure that it runs, you can do that. If you, this is our subflow where we're waiting for a cloud run. So if you have a cloud run that you want to trigger via some other method other than this flow, you want to trigger it and then maybe you want to do something else and then wait for it, you can do that as well. You can combine those two in any way that you see fit. And then same with listing artifacts. So we've got a task that goes and it lists the artifacts. Each of these calls a single endpoint in the dbt cloud API. And so this, I see this existing on a spectrum of the kind of control and complexity. So if you're using the flow that we've created, you're just importing it and running it. It's a lower amount of control, but a lower amount of complexity. If you're coming in and you're using the tasks that we've created, that's a medium amount of control and a medium amount of complexity. Because if you're using our pre-built tasks, they're tasks for API endpoints that we've already created them for. But the cool thing with the dbt cloud credentials block, if we go and we take a look at that, is this isn't just configuration that's being stored in here. There's also this method on here that all of the tasks that we've written use, which is get administrative client. And this is the actual client that we use for calling the dbt API. And you can do this yourself. So if I, instead of using this flow, I get my dbt cloud credentials and I come in and I create a client and I say dbt cloud credentials, get administrative client. I've got this client now. And so you can see I've got access to all of the methods that we've made to call dbt cloud endpoints. One of them is just call endpoint. So you can call any endpoint in the dbt cloud API. It'll use your credentials to do that, so you don't have to manage the credentials, but you have full access into the API. So if you want to ad hoc create a dbt cloud job, you can do that. If you want to ad hoc create projects in dbt cloud, you can do that. And this is where we're getting to the high amount of control, high complexity, because at this point you need to understand the dbt cloud API pretty well. You need to understand the types that you're passing into those parameters. You need to understand what you're getting back and how to parse it, but that's all possible. And this is what's really cool about Prefect 2.0 is that we're able to offer this spectrum, whereas before the dbt cloud task in 1.0 was kind of this black box. If any of the API calls failed, it would retry the entire thing, potentially resulting in multiple triggers of a dbt cloud job. But we get finer granularity in our retries. We get the ability to offer a higher degree of control to our users, and we're able to satisfy more use cases that way. So that's dbt cloud.
That's awesome, Alex. I didn't realize we had such a range of different options for people kind of whatever level of complexity and control they wanted. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We got a
And
question here, if I can jump
for
in.
sure, yeah, it's a good time for questions.
Yeah. I'm going to go with user radbart, maybe, RIDBRT. Has the question, waiting for flow to finish creates a lot of API calls. What happens if there's a network issue like you talked about? I guess like if the network's down, like I think this is a question about, will I just keep retrying, or how do things work there?
So for this particular flow, that's configurable. So if it's creating a lot of API calls, maybe you don't want to call it every 10 seconds. This is dependent on how long you expect this job to take. Calling every 10 seconds for a job that you know will take about 5 minutes to complete, probably not a good use of resources. And so for this particular flow, you have the option to configure the poll frequency and also the maximum amount of time that you're willing to wait. So by default, you're going to wait 900 seconds in order for a job to complete. That, like in our case, if our 2-minute job is taking 900 seconds to complete, we're honestly waiting too long, and so it'll time out and you'll get an error, and you can go look and try and figure out why your job was taking longer than expected to. But no, we're not going to just sit and wait forever for something to complete. This is, kind of some of the best practices that we try and build into flows that we create is, we're going to make sure that we give you meaningful error messages, that we handle as many edge cases as possible for you. And that's the advantage that you get by using the flows that we've made, or that the maintainer of a collection has made, versus, kind of piecing together tasks yourself. You take on some of that responsibility in that.
Nice. That's a really nice convenience feature for sure. Cool. Thanks.
Cool. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about dbt CLI as well. So CLI is the open source version of dbt. And so this is for users that use dbt, but maybe don't use dbt cloud. And we offer the ability for them to interact with their dbt projects via the dbt CLI. And so there's a cool interaction here where the Prefect dbt has as a dependency Prefect shell, which is another collection that's used for executing shell commands as part of your Prefect flows. And so as part of like this collections ecosystem that we're building, there's still a great ability for reuse across collections. And so that's one example of it. So if we go to our trigger dbt CLI command, that task, you can see that towards the bottom here. So this shell run command is functionality that came from Prefect shell, and we're able to reuse that. Another cool piece of reuse that we have within Prefect dbt is how we are able to configure profiles. So profiles are information that you give to your dbt project about like how to connect to your warehouse, how many threads to use, information like that. And dbt is able to connect to a lot of the major data warehouses like Snowflake, BigQuery, Postgres databases, and we want to be able to support that and make that easy to use. And with the collections that we have collections for GCP. So we have pre-built functionality for interacting with BigQuery. We have a Prefect Snowflake collection, so we have functionality for integrating with Snowflake. We have Prefect SQL Alchemy, which allows you to interact with a wide variety of databases. And so we found that we were able to reuse some of the blocks that we had in those collections and provide a streamlined experience for credentials, specifically when interacting with dbt. And so I can show that with some of these blocks that we have. So these are all different blocks for configuring dbt profiles. There was a challenge in Prefect 1.0 where you had to make sure that parts of your dbt project were available in your environment, your execution environment, specifically on your agent when you were running your flow. This was a little hard to grok for users sometimes. because it would work locally because your DBT project was local. And then when you registered your flow code would get stored in the storage location and then pulled down, but your DBT project would not. This is vastly improved in 2.0. One, because of the new deployments that we have, where you're packaging up an entire directory and storing it, and then pulling down that entire directory. So you can take a DBT project, it can be in that that directory, and you can make sure that it gets there with your flow. The other is via this configuration. So you can actually store the configuration with Prefect and use it across multiple flows. And so we have general purpose ones. And so this would be like, the DBT target configs. This is where you would put in information about what warehouse you're interacting with. And these are like kind of the basic information that you're going to need. A lot of times when you are entering in information like credentials about your warehouse, it goes in the extras. So this is a little bit hard to interact with because you need to know exactly what shape of object needs to be put in here, what keys need to be there. And so by using the existing blocks that we have, like GCP credentials, like Snowflake connector, we have specific use case blocks for DBT CLI profiles. So if we look at, say, BigQuery, you see that we have everything that we had before, but then we also have GCP credentials. So you can take an existing GCP block that you may have used for something else and use it here. Similarly, with our DBT Snowflake target configs, you can put a Snowflake connector in here that you've already pre-configured. Maybe because you're running queries directly against Snowflake, you can reuse that here without having to input it.
That's awesome, Alex. Is that something that you have to first install the Prefect DBT collection and then you get all those blocks, or is that something that's available right away when you're looking here?
Yeah, so you have to make sure you have Prefect DBT installed. And so the process for getting blocks available in Prefect Cloud, especially, there is a step that's required there. And so that if you're running Prefect DBT or Prefect blocks register, and then pointing to the module where the blocks exist, that's going to then register these blocks for configuration in Prefect Cloud. And you'll get all the blocks that are necessary for that. And so by doing this, where we have, you're able to use blocks from other collections in Prefect DBT, blocks are really becoming almost like the password manager for your data stack. Like, you enter your Snowflake credentials once, you're going to be able to use it across different use cases, not just within Prefect, but even if you're using it with DBT, you can still use that Snowflake credentials block in order to authenticate with Snowflake. And that's really cool. So, I'd expect, we're building out blocks. We're expecting to have many more blocks, and we're expecting to find lots of use cases for interconnectivity, because the data stack is very interconnected, and reflecting that here gives you a sense of like, okay, I can see here, I have a DBT profile, it has a Snowflake block in it, so I can see like DBT is talking to Snowflake, and I'm also talking to Snowflake. And in the future, we're hoping to be able to provide insights into your data stack by using Prefect. Like, that observability that you have, we expect only to increase.
Awesome. Yeah, totally agree with Grizz and Kevin here on how kind of awesome this connections are, especially with the warehouses.
Yeah, I think that was all I had to cover today. But this is one collection of many. I highly recommend like checking out in the Prefect docs. You can see our catalog of collections. There's 22 listed there currently, with more to come. And just looking at those, seeing what functionality is available, and getting a sense of like just the power of Prefect. You can really see it in these collections here.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Alex. This is great. If anyone else has questions, please put those into chat here, and we can take those for a minute. But this is a great kind of intro to how blocks work, and especially in a collection like this where they're kind of using nested blocks or stacking the blocks together and really seeing their power. It's pretty awesome. I love your metaphor of the password manager. It really is kind of what it's like here. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, any last words for us, Alex?
I used up my final statement already. So
it was a good final statement. Prefect's got a lot of awesome stuff here, and version 2 really introduces a lot of great things. So if you're thinking about upgrading from version 1 to version 2, I encourage you to get out there and play with all the collections and the blocks and just see what's possible. It's pretty awesome. All right, thanks all for tuning in. Thanks, Alex, and see you all next time.
Catch you later.